Hey guys, Ryan from the Mavericks. This is podcast episode 15, and today we're talking about how to deal with rough customers. Rough customers, who are they? They are the customers that ruin your day, ruin your thinking, and ruin your decisions. Let me elaborate. Your rough customers are the ones when you see them in your inbox or they come to your front door, and all of a sudden you just get a headache. All right, your whole day is spent thinking about them, and inadvertently all your decisions are spent trying to figure out how to deal with this customer, which means that over the long term, you'll be configuring your whole business around these bad customers. Just think about this. Your rough customers, the ones you don't want to deal with, because they take up the most amount of real estate in your mind, and because you're making most of your decisions to try and accommodate for them, you end up building a business that attracts more of them. So your goal is to try and get rid of all rough customers. So that's what we're going to get into today. Now think of the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule states that 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of your customers. In other words, most of your revenue is coming from a small group of people amongst your whole customer base that is providing the most amount of revenue and the least amount of complaints. If you were to just make this 20% of your customer base 100% of everyone you dealt with, if you were to 5 times that customer base, you would quadruple your revenue. You would quadruple your revenue with the customers you loved working with if you just focused all your time on this small group of customers, this 20% of customers. But 80% of our attention is going to 20% of our customers that give us the least amount of revenue and the most amount of complaints, which means that we are not building up that 20% of really good customers to 100%. We're actually building up that 20% of bad customers to become 80% of our business. These customers, if they are taking up 80% of your time, and these are the bad customers, right? If they are taking 80% of your time, what that means is they're ruining 80% of your day, 80% of your thinking, and 80% of your decisions, which means that by dealing with them some more, not only are you going to build a business that attracts more of them, they are going to affect the long-term survivability of your business. So the longer you deal with them, the worse off you are. You got to get rid of rough customers, and you just got to focus in on your best customers. If you just think of a race car example, your best customers are the fuel that's going to get you from A to Z. And your worst customers are like aerodynamic brakes that just slow your car down. They're like hurdles or speed bumps in the road, potholes that actually slow you down and destroy your suspension before you can even get to the finish line. That's how you got to see your rough customers. It's a little harsh, but it's true. You're an enterprise. You're trying to do something that no one else has ever done. And you have a small group of people that don't care about your existence. They only care about their own existence. And they're going to use you to get there, which is why they're your worst customers to deal with. All right, so now that we've covered the 80-20 principle for your best customers and your worst customers, I need you to look at it in one more way. If you were to segment your population, your market population, so you've got a population of customers that is generating the most amount of revenue, and then a population of customers that's generating the most amount of complaints, what you will notice is that your best customers are generating, say, $5 in revenue, $5 in profit, and your worst customers are taking away from you $4 of profit. So one group is making you $5, another group is making you $4. Why is that? Your $5 profit customers cost you the least to deal with. They give you referrals, they're easy to advertise to, they're easy to convert, they trust you already, and so the overhead used to apply to them to get revenue is lower. But your worst customers, it takes more overhead to deal with them. And if you're not really tracking the overhead you're contributing to this group, they are actually sucking out a ghostly amount of money, which means that this group is generating a profit and this group is generating a loss. So net, your company might look like it's making a profit, but in actuality, this group is taking away most of your profit. You have a potential to get more profit dealing with your best customers than with your worst customers, but only if you can see how much time you spend with these rough customers. So now that I've made my point about these rough customers and why you got to deal with them immediately, here's how you deal with them. The first way to deal with a rough customer, is to take a look at yourself and then to take a look at that rough customer. When you take a look at yourself, you have to understand something. You are valuable as a person and you are valuable as a business. You don't need to acquiesce to people who don't appreciate you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, even if you lose a rough customer, you're going to get more customers. If you're always focused on psychographics, which we'll cover in a later podcast, if you're always focused on helping people because of a certain motivation, there will always be a stream of people that will inevitably have that motivation and will come to trust you as the solution provider. So there'll always be more customers for you. All right, that's the other thing I want to cover. And the last thing is, as long as you're doing good, right? As long as you're really good in your product, and by product and service, by being good, what I mean is, if you would pay 10 times more for your own product or service, as long as your product is that good, okay, as long as your operations are that good, as long as your cost expenses, your expense list is that good, like it's really trimmed down, as long as your talent management system, the way you deal with your team is really good, the way you promote, the way you hire and fire is really good, as long as your operations, I mentioned your operations, your legal, your accounting, your filing, all your administrative stuff, if that's all good, if your time with your family and your children are all good, listen, then you're doing fantastic. If you're doing all this good, if you can understand that you have value, if you can understand that there will always be more customers down the pipeline, and if you can understand and accept that you are doing a good job with your business, then you don't need to deal with rough customers. Okay? So that's when you're dealing with rough customers, that's how you deal with yourself first. Now, in dealing with rough customers, plain and simple, fire them. Get rid of rough customers. And what I mean is this: if you have a contract with a rough customer, just fulfill that contract to the best of your abilities, deliver the 10 out of 10, build a good reputation for your business, and then don't renew that contract with that customer. Don't continue any ties. Clean cut, almost like you're firing an employee. Just fire a customer, get rid of them. If the longer you work with them, the more you configure your business to attract more of them, and the more you actually make that customer, the best way to put it is, the more you deal with that customer, the less likely you are to survive in the long term, because they are making you change your business model just to accommodate them, and they don't really care about your existence, which means that you're building a business around a person that doesn't care about your existence, which means you are not going to exist in the long term, right? You want to focus on the customers that want you to exist, and therefore configure your business around the decisions that will keep you existing longer. All right? So now, if you like all this so far, please just take 5 seconds right now. Hit that thumbs up or that 5-star on Spotify or whatever channel you're listening to. Just if you could give us a little support, we'd really appreciate it. Let's go review everything we talked about in terms of dealing with rough customers. So number one, rough customers ruin your day, ruin your thinking, and ruin your decisions. Number two, 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of your best customers. If you were to just focus on all your best customers only and just build a whole customer base on them, you could quadruple your revenue. 80% of the time and complaints you deal with are coming from 20% of your customer base. Those are your rough customers. And you need to get rid of them, because the longer you work with them, the more you build a business around them that attracts more of them, and the lower the chance you have of surviving in the long term. Next, if you were to segment your business around your good customers and your rough customers, you would see that the profit on your good customers is much higher, because there's less overhead needed to get them to convert, versus your rough customer takes more overhead to convert. And so their profit from that group is actually lower. The profit, so the loss coming in from this rough group is actually robbing the profit you could get if you just dealt with your good customers. Now that you know that, you have to deal with them. So the fifth point I want to make here is that you are a valuable person, all right? You are always going to get more customers. And as long as you're doing the good things for your business, you have no reason to worry about getting rid of a rough customer. And then when it comes to dealing with rough customers, just fire them. If you have a contract with them, fulfill it to 10 out of 10, and then just don't renew it, cut them off, fire them like you would fire an employee, clean and direct, it's over. And that's it. That's how you deal with rough customers. I mentioned this right now in this podcast episode because, in our business, we all deal with rough customers, even to this day. So that being said, this is Ryan from the Mavericks. Continue to do what you're doing in business, careers, or investments. Don't give up. And just remember, if you're heading to your first million and beyond, if you are wanting to gain autonomy over your income, the person who stays in the game the longest gets the breakthrough. And everybody gets the breakthrough as long as they stay in the game. But you don't need to do it alone. Join our group, mavericks.goldwynandsons.com. We're all here to support each other to get to that first million and beyond, to stay long enough in the game to get that breakthrough. Thank you so much. Take care.